You know, I was sitting in my garden just yesterday morning watching a tiny hummingbird hover near my flowers. Such a small creature, yet so absolutely confident in its ability to find sweetness in life. It didn't doubt whether it deserved the nectar. It didn't worry about whether there would be enough. It simply followed its inner knowing, trusted in abundance, and received exactly what it needed. How many of us can say we approach life with that same unwavering trust? That same absolute knowing that we deserve life's sweetness? I want you to take a moment right now. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable doing so. Think about the last time you felt truly abundant, not just financially wealthy. I'm talking about that deep soul level feeling that life is rich with possibilities. That moment when your heart felt so full it could burst. Now here's what fascinates me and what I've spent decades exploring. In that moment of feeling abundant, you weren't responding to your bank account, were you? You weren't calculating your net worth or checking your investment portfolio. No, you were experiencing a state of being. An emotional frequency that attracted more of the same energy into your life. This isn't mystical thinking, dear friends. This is quantum physics. This is the vibrating, pulsing reality of our universe that ancient wisdom traditions have understood for millennia and that modern science is finally catching up to. Let me share something profound with you. Back in 1995, I had an experience that changed everything I understood about emotions and abundance. I was speaking at a conference in Detroit, feeling particularly low. My books weren't selling as I'd hoped. My relationships were strained, and I was carrying this heavy energy of scarcity everywhere I went. After my talk, a woman approached me. I'll never forget her face. She was probably in her 70s, dressed simply but radiating this incredible. Wayne hands in hers and said something that stopped me in my tracks. Wayne, honey, you're looking for abundance in all the wrong places. You're searching outside when the fountain is within. Now, I could have dismissed her words as just another platitude, but there was something in her presence, this tangible field of joy and possibility that made me listen. Here was someone who probably had a fraction of my material resources, yet she possessed an abundance I couldn't touch. That moment began a journey that transformed my understanding of how our emotional state creates our material reality, not the other way around. Have you ever noticed how some people seem to attract good fortune, no matter their circumstances, while others, blessed with every advantage, constantly struggle with a sense of lack? The difference isn't in their external conditions. It's in their emotional set point, their inner vibration, their fundamental relationship with the concept of abundance itself. What emotions arise in you when you think about money? About success? About love? About health? Be ruthlessly honest with yourself right now, because these emotional patterns are the invisible architects of your reality. If you feel anxiety, unworthiness, or fear when you think about abundance, guess what kind of experiences you're attracting? If you feel guilt about wanting more, what message are you sending to the universe about your readiness to receive? But here's the beautiful truth, and I want you to really let this sink in. Your emotions are not fixed. They're not your identity. They're more like radio frequencies that you can tune to different stations. I remember counseling a young man in Philadelphia. Let's call him Michael. He came to me practically vibrating with frustration about his financial situation. Dr. Dyer, he said, I've tried everything, and I've worked harder than anyone I know. I've taken every course, read every book, but I can't seem to get ahead. I asked him to do something that probably seemed strange at first. I asked him to stop trying to change his circumstances for a moment and instead describe how it would feel to be living in abundance. He looked at me like I was crazy. What do you mean? How would it feel? It would feel great. I wouldn't be stressed anymore. I could help my mom retire. I stopped him right there. No, I said gently, I'm not asking what you would do. I'm asking you to sink into the emotion of abundance right now. Not tomorrow, not when circumstances change, right now. This is where most people get stuck. They think they need to wait for external conditions to change before they can feel abundant. But that's exactly backward. The feeling comes first. The emotion is the seed from which the reality grows. Let me share something I learned from studying the great spiritual masters. They never prayed for what they wanted. They gave thanks for what they knew was already theirs. They aligned their emotional frequency with the reality they wished to experience. Think about that for a moment. Really let it sink in. They weren't begging the universe for scraps from the table. They were claiming their rightful place at the feast of life. Now, I can see some of you shifting uncomfortably in your seats. Maybe you're thinking, Wayne, this sounds great in theory, but I've got real problems. I've got bills to pay, responsibilities to meet. I hear you. And I want you to hear me clearly on this. I'm not suggesting you deny your current reality. I'm not advocating for magical thinking or irresponsibility. What I'm suggesting is something far more powerful, that you begin to consciously choose your emotional relationship with abundance regardless of current circumstances. The universe doesn't respond to your words, your wishes, or even your actions primarily. It responds to your emotional broadcast, your feeling tone, the energy you're emanating moment by moment. Let me share a simple but profound truth. Abundance isn't something you chase, it's something you tune into. Like a radio finding the right frequency, you align yourself with it emotionally first. The physical manifestation follows. Think about water for a moment. When water is calm, it perfectly reflects the sky above. But when it's turbulent, that same reflection becomes distorted. Your emotional state works the same way. When your inner world is churning with anxiety, fear, and scarcity consciousness, you can't clearly reflect or attract the abundance that's always available to you. I want you to do something with me right now. Take a deep breath. Now another one. Feel your shoulders relaxing, your jaw unclenching. With each breath, I want you to silently repeat these words. I am abundance itself. Don't just say the words. Feel their truth in your body. Let them sink into your bones. Because here's what I know with absolute certainty. The moment you shift from seeking abundance to embodying abundance, everything changes. You see, dear friends, we've been taught to think of abundance as something external, something we have to struggle and strive for. But the truth is, abundance is our natural state. Look at nature. Does the ocean worry about running out of waves? Does the sun fret about having enough light to share? The real question isn't whether abundance exists. It's whether we're emotionally aligned with its frequency, whether we're tuned to its channel, whether we're open to receiving what's already trying to flow into our lives. As we continue our journey together today, I want you to hold on to this fundamental truth. Your emotions are not just reactions to your reality. They are the creative force shaping your reality. In the next part of our discussion, we'll explore exactly how to shift those emotions deliberately, how to clear the blocks that keep you stuck in scarcity consciousness, and how to align yourself with the natural abundance of the universe. But for now, I want you to sit with this question. What would change in your life if you absolutely knew, not hoped, not wished, but knew that abundance was your natural state? How would you carry yourself differently? How would you speak differently? How would you feel differently? Let that question be the seed we plant together today. Because I promise you, as we continue this journey, you're going to discover that the very questions you ask yourself determine the answers life reveals to you. And remember that Hummingbird I mentioned, it's not just finding sweetness in life, it's creating sweetness wherever it goes, pollinating flowers spreading life. That's the secret. We're going to unlock together how to become not just receivers of abundance, but living channels through which abundance flows to bless the world. You know what fascinates me most about human beings? Our incredible capacity to hold on to thoughts and emotions that don't serve us, even when we know better. It's like we're driving through life with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake, and then wondering why we're not getting anywhere. Let me share something powerful that happened in 1987. I was conducting a workshop in Vancouver, and a woman in the front row was visibly upset. During the break, she approached me and said, Dr. Dyer, I understand everything you're saying about it. Emotions attracting abundance, but every time I start to feel good about my possibilities, I hear my father's voice in my head saying, how many of you can relate to that? I know voices from the past that seem to have taken up permanent residence in your emotional house. The interesting thing is, and this is crucial, those voices aren't actually speaking in the present. We're the ones keeping them alive through our emotional attachment to them. Here's what I told her and what I want to tell you now. You are not your emotions. You are the awareness that observes your emotions. This distinction changes. Think about it this way. When clouds pass across the sky, does the sky become the clouds? Of course not. The sky remains unchanged, vast, and open, simply observing the clouds as they come and go. Your consciousness is like that sky, eternally aware, eternally abundant, eternally at peace. But most of us have become so identified with our emotional weather patterns that we forget we are the sky. Let me give you a practical tool right now. I want you to think of an emotion that frequently blocks your sense of abundance. Maybe it's anxiety about money. Maybe it's unworthiness about success. Maybe it's guilt about wanting more than you currently have. Got it? Now, instead of trying to change that emotion, I want you to do something radical. I want you to fully acknowledge it. Give it space. And this is the crucial part. I want you to watch it as if you were the sky watching I notice I'm feeling anxiety about money right now. Not I am anxious about money. Do you see the difference? One statement creates identification, the other creates awareness, and awareness is always the first step toward transformation. This isn't just philosophical wordplay, this is practical emotional alchemy. Because when you create that space between your awareness and your emotions, something magical happens. You reclaim your power to choose. Let me tell you about James, a businessman I worked with in Chicago back in 1992. He had built a successful company, but he was constantly gripped by fear of losing everything. This fear was creating exactly the scenarios he was afraid of. He was making decisions from a place of scarcity, turning down opportunities, alienating partners. One day I asked him to do an exercise. James, I said, I want you to spend the next week practicing something unusual. Every time you feel that fear of loss coming up, I want you to stop whatever you're doing and say thank you. He looked at me like I had lost my mind. Thank you for feeling afraid? Yes, I said, because that fear is showing you exactly where you need to grow. It's pointing to the very place where abundance is trying to enter your life. You see what James discovered. And what I want you to discover is that our so-called negative emotions are not our enemies. They're signposts. They're showing us where we're still believing in limitation instead of abundance. Think about this. Every emotion you feel about money, success, or abundance has been learned. And anything that can be learned can be unlearned. Anything that can be programmed can be reprogrammed. But here's the key. And this is something I've observed over decades of working with people. You can't transform what you don't acknowledge. You can't release what you're refusing to feel. This brings me to a crucial principle. A path to emotional abundance requires radical honesty with yourself, not judgment. Honesty. There's a world of difference between the two. I want you to try something with me right now. Close your eyes if you're comfortable. Think about your current financial situation. Notice what emotions arise. Don't try to change them. Don't try to fix them. Just notice them with the same curiosity you'd have watching clouds in the sky. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Without trying to change anything, simply ask yourself, who would I be without this emotional story? Who would I be if I didn't believe these thoughts about limitation? You see, dear friends, abundance isn't something you achieve. It's something you allow. And you allow it by first allowing yourself to feel everything that seems to stand in it. I learned this lesson profoundly in 1983 when I was struggling with my own relationship with success. I had achieved external abundance in many ways, but internally I felt hollow. It wasn't until I allowed myself to feel the deep unworthiness I had been running from that things began to shift. Every emotion that blocks abundance is actually protecting an old decision you made about what you deserve, what's possible, what's safe. These decisions usually happen so early in life that we don't even remember making them. But here's the liberating truth. You are not that child anymore. You are not bound by those decisions. You can choose again. This is where the real work of emotional transformation happens, not in trying to force positive feelings when you feel negative ones. Not in trying to affirmation your way out of deep-seated beliefs, but in creating enough space in your awareness to let old emotions surface, be felt, and naturally think of it like this. Every emotion is energy in motion. Energy cannot be destroyed, but it can be transformed. When you bring the light of awareness to your emotional patterns around abundance, you're not just observing them, you're beginning to transform them. I want to share a practical technique I've taught thousands of people. I call it the abundance breathing space. It's simple but profound. Whenever you notice an emotion that seems to block abundance, whether it's fear, anxiety, unworthiness, or anything else, do these 3 things. First, stop whatever you're doing. Just pause. Second, take 3 conscious breaths, feeling the sensation of breathing in your body. What would abundance do in this situation? Not what would fear do, not what would your past do, not what would your limitations do. What would abundance do? This simple practice begins to rewire your emotional relationship with abundance. Because here's the truth. Abundance isn't waiting for you to feel perfect. It's waiting for you to feel real. Let me share something powerful that one of my greatest teachers once told me. She said, Wayne, the universe is not testing you. It's reflecting you. Think about that for a moment. Every circumstance in your life right now is reflecting back to you your emotional relationship with abundance. This means that every moment is an opportunity. Every emotion is a door. Every challenge is an invitation to shift your inner relationship with abundance. As we move forward, I want you to remember this. You're not broken. Your emotions aren't wrong. You're simply in a process of remembering your natural state of abundance. And sometimes the path to remembering requires us to feel everything.
In our next segment, we're going to explore exactly how to transmute these challenging emotions into fuel for abundance. We'll discover how to take these very things that seem to block abundance and turn them into stepping stones toward it.
But I want you to sit with this question, Zach. What if every emotion you feel about abundance, even the difficult ones, is actually trying to guide you home to your natural state of prosperity? What if nothing needs to be pushed away and everything can be used as fuel for your growth? Remember, the sky doesn't fight the clouds. It doesn't judge them. It simply holds space for them to move through. And in that allowing, in that acceptance, true transformation becomes possible. You know, I'm reminded of something that happened during a retreat I led in Maui in 2010. We were discussing abundance, much like we are today, when a successful businessman stood up and made a confession that stunned the room. He said, Wayne, I've made millions, lost millions, and made them again. But I've never felt abundant for a single day in my life. That moment crystallized something I'd observed over decades of working with people from all walks of life. The size of your bank account has virtually nothing to do with your sense of abundance. Some of the most financially wealthy people I've met feel spiritually bankrupt, while some of the materially poorest radiate an abundance that money couldn't buy. So let's talk about how to actually transform your emotional relationship with abundance. Not just understand it intellectually, but embody it at a cellular level. We need to understand something crucial. Your emotions create an energy field around you. This isn't metaphysical mumbo-jumbo, it's quantum physics. Every emotion has a specific frequency, and let me give you a practical example. In 1976, I was giving a talk in Boston. After the session, a woman came up to me and said something I'll never forget. She said, Dr. Dyer, I've noticed something strange. On days when I wake up feeling grateful and expansive, unexpected checks show up in the mail. On days when I wake up worried about money, unexpected bills arrive. How is this possible? What this woman had stumbled upon was the fundamental law of emotional resonance. Like attracts like. But here's the key, and this is where most people get stuck. You don't have to wait for good things to happen to feel abundant. You can choose to align with the frequency of abundance right now. Let me show you how. We're going to do something powerful together. I want you to think of a recent situation where you felt lack or limitation. Got it? Now, instead of trying to change that situation, we're going to change your emotional relationship to it. This is what I call emotional alchemy. Step 1, acknowledge the current emotion without judgment. If you're feeling fear about money, simply say, hello, fear, I see you. Step 2, ask yourself, what is this emotion trying to protect me from? Usually, you'll find it's trying to protect you from some form of pain or loss you experienced in the past. Thank the emotion for trying to protect you. This is crucial. Remember, resistance creates persistence. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Step 4 is what I call the abundance pivot. Instead of trying to push away the challenging emotion, you're going to use it as a springboard into abundance consciousness. What would this situation look like through the eyes of abundance? Not through the eyes of fear, not through the eyes of past experience, but through the eyes of abundance itself. Let me share how this worked in my own life. In 1978, I was facing a significant financial decision that had me tied in knots. I was being offered an opportunity to speak internationally, but it required investing money I didn't think. Every morning, I would wake up feeling this knot of anxiety in my stomach. But instead of fighting it, I started practicing what I'm teaching you now. I would acknowledge the anxiety, thank it for trying to protect me, and then ask, what would abundance do in this situation? The answer that came wasn't about the money at all. It was about service. Abundance showed me that by focusing on how many people I could serve rather than how much money I might lose. The emotional frequency would shift naturally. This brings us to a fundamental truth about emotional abundance. It's not about suppressing negative emotions or forcing positive ones. It's about transmutation. Everything you feel can be fuel for your growth if you know how to work with it. There's a powerful practice I want you to try for the next 30 days. It's called the Abundance Response Training. Every time you encounter a situation that triggers scarcity thinking, pause and ask yourself these 3 questions. What am I feeling in my body right now? This grounds you in present awareness. What would this situation look like if abundance was the only reality? This shifts your perspective. What's the most abundant action I can take right now? This transforms emotion into action. Let me give you a concrete example. Say you check your bank account and feel that familiar clutch of anxiety. Instead of getting caught in the emotion, first, notice where you feel the anxiety in your body. Maybe it's in your chest or your stomach. Second, imagine how an infinitely abundant being would view this exact same bank balance. They might see it as a temporary snapshot in an endless flow of resources. Third, ask yourself what action abundance would take. Often, it's not what fear would suggest. You see, dear friends, abundance isn't just about attracting more resources. It's about becoming a different kind of person. Someone who sees opportunity where others see limitation. Someone who feels gratitude where others feel lack. I remember counseling a young artist in New York back in 1989. She was talented but struggling, constantly worried about money. I asked her to do something that seemed counterintuitive. Every time she felt financial pressure, instead of contracting, I asked her to give something away. It could be her time, her talent, even just a genuine compliment. The key was to interrupt the contraction that scarcity creates by deliberately choosing expansion. Within 6 months, her entire life had transformed. Not because she was doing anything dramatically different in her work, but because she had changed her emotional relationship with abundance. Here's what I want you to understand. Your emotions are like the roots of a tree. Whatever you feed them is what will grow in your life. Right now, in this moment, I want you to place your hand on your heart. Feel its steady beat. That rhythm is abundance in motion. Your heart doesn't wonder if it will have enough beats for tomorrow. It doesn't hoard its rhythm. It gives freely, consistently, abundantly. This is the wisdom your body already knows. Abundance is your natural state. Your work isn't to create abundance. It's to remove the emotional blocks that keep you from experiencing what's already there. Every emotion that seems to block abundance is actually pointing the way toward it. Your fear of lack, it's showing you where you need to trust more. Your anxiety about the future, it's inviting you to deepen your faith in the present moment. I want to share with you what I consider the master key to emotional abundance. It's something I discovered after decades of working with people from all walks of life. Here it is. The quality of your life is determined by the questions you habitually ask yourself. Instead of asking, why don't I have enough? Ask, how can I serve more? Instead of asking, what if I fail? Ask, what if abundance is inevitable? Instead of asking what's wrong, ask what's trying to emerge. As we prepare to move into our next segment, I want to leave you with a powerful practice. Tonight, before you go to bed, I want you to write down every emotion you felt about money or abundance today. Don't judge them. Don't try to change them. Just write them down. Thank you, Shamotion. Right? Thank you for showing me where I'm ready to grow. Because here's the truth, and this is something I want you to really let sink in. Every emotion you feel about abundance is either an expression of love or a call for love. When you understand this, everything changes. Remember, the universe doesn't respond to your words or your wishes. It responds to your emotional broadcast. And you have the power in every moment to choose what you're broadcasting. In our next segment, we're going to explore how to maintain this emotional alignment with abundance even in the face of apparent setbacks. Because the true test isn't creating abundance when everything is going well. It's maintaining your abundant nature when life seems to be showing you something different. But for now, I want you to sit with this question. What if every emotion you're feeling right now, even the uncomfortable ones, is actually abundance trying to break through in a new way? You know what I find fascinating? The way life has of testing not our resources, but our resourcefulness. The way it presents us with exactly the situations that seem designed to trigger our oldest wounds around abundance. Let me share something personal with you. In 1985, I faced what seemed like a catastrophic financial setback. A business venture I'd invested heavily in collapsed. I remember sitting in my study late one night looking at numbers that seemed to mock everything I taught about abundance. But that moment taught me something profound, something I want to share with you now. The real test of abundance consciousness isn't in maintaining it when everything's going well. It's about maintaining it precisely when external circumstances seem to be screaming at the top of their lungs. I call this the abundance paradox. The moment when choosing abundance feels most impossible is exactly the moment when choosing it matters most. Let me share a story that illustrates this perfectly. In 2008, during the height of the financial crisis, I was working with a woman. Let's call her Sarah. She had just lost her job. Her savings were dwindling. And she was feeling that bone-deep fear that many experienced during that time. One day, she told me something remarkable. She said, Wayne, I've decided to practice abundance even though I have less than ever before. When I asked her what she meant, she said, every morning, I look in the mirror and say, today, I choose to be the wealthiest woman in the world. Not in money, but in appreciation. Do you understand what she did there? She refused to let external circumstances dictate her emotional state. She understood something crucial that I want you to grasp right now. Abundance is not a condition to be met. Let me show you how to make this practical. We're going to explore what I call the 4 pillars of unshakable abundance. These are the emotional foundations that will keep you anchored in abundance consciousness no matter what's happening around you. Radical gratitude. This isn't the superficial count your blessings kind of gratitude. This is the kind that can look at a crisis and say, thank you for this opportunity to demonstrate my trust in an abundance. Try this right now. Think of your biggest current financial challenge. Now take a deep breath and say, thank you for this opportunity to go stronger in my abundance consciousness. Mean it. Feel it. Let it sink into your bones. Emotional sovereignty, this is the unshakable, knowing that your emotions are a choice. Not always an easy choice, but always your choice. I remember counseling a businessman in 1992 who had just lost everything in a market crash. He told me, Wayne, I feel like I'm dying inside. I asked him something that changed his life, who decided that losing money means losing. This is crucial, dear friends. Your circumstances may not be your choice, but your emotional response always is. Always. The abundance loop, this is the practice of consciously creating a cycle of giving and receiving, especially when fear tells you to contract and hold tight. Let me show you how this works. When you're feeling lack, that's exactly the moment to give something. It doesn't have to be money. Give a smile, give encouragement, give your full presence to someone who needs it. I practiced this principle for decades, and I can tell you with absolute certainty, it's impossible to feel scarce while you're in the act of giving. It's a psychological and spiritual impossibility. Pillar. Abundance memory, this is about consciously building a reservoir of memories where you felt deeply abundant so you can draw from them during challenging times. Every night before bed, write down 3 moments from your day when you felt abundant. They don't have to be about money. Maybe it was the richness of a sunset, the wealth of a deep conversation, the abundance of a hearty laugh. But here's where it gets really interesting. These pillars aren't just psychological tools, they're energy generators. Each one creates a specific frequency that attracts more of the same. Let me share something that happened in my own practice of these principles. In 1994, I was facing a situation that seemed to threaten everything I had built. Instead of going into fear, I doubled down on these 4 pillars. Every morning, I would practice radical gratitude for the challenge itself. Assert my emotional sovereignty by choosing peace, regardless of circumstances. Engage in the abundance loop by finding ways to give more, not less. Build my abundance memory by consciously collecting moments of richness. And here's what I discovered. Something I want you to write on your heart. The universe doesn't respond to your fears about scarcity. It responds to your faith in abundance. Let me show you a powerful technique I call abundance breathing. When you feel those old scarcity emotions rising, I breathe in abundant life, exhale fully, saying silently, I release all scarcity thoughts. Do this 3 times whenever you feel yourself contracting around money or resources. But here's the advanced practice. And this is where real transformation happens. Instead of waiting for scarcity feelings to arise, you proactively generate abundance emotions. How? By asking yourself these 3 questions every morning. How can I expand today? Where can I give more freely today? What abundance can I recognize right now? I worked with a teacher in Seattle back in 2002 who transformed her entire relationship with abundance using these questions. She told me, Wayne, I realized I was waiting to feel abundant until I had more money. Now, I understand that feeling abundant is what creates more money. This is the great shift in consciousness I'm inviting you to make. Stop waiting for abundance to show up in your bank account before you feel it in your heart. Your heart is meant to lead this dance, not follow it. The universe isn't testing your ability to endure scarcity. It's testing your willingness to receive abundance regardless of circumstances. Think about that for a moment. Really let it sink in. Every challenging circumstance in your life right now is actually an invitation to demonstrate your unshakable faith in abundance. As we move toward our final segment, I want to give you a powerful practice for tonight. When you go to bed, place your hand on your heart and say these words, I am abundance itself, nothing can be added to me, and nothing can be taken from me. Because here's what I know with absolute certainty. The moment you stop trying to get abundance and realize you are abundance, everything changes. Everything. In our final segment, we're going to explore how to take this deeper understanding and turn it into a lasting transformation that affects not just your finances, but every area of your life. But would change in your life if you knew it, not hoped, not wished, but knew. That abundance was your very nature. How would you move through your challenges differently? Never. The oak tree doesn't pray for leaves in spring. It simply expresses its nature. Your work is to express your nature, which is abundance itself. As we come to this final part of our journey together, I'm reminded of something my mother told me back when we were living in foster homes in Detroit. She said, Wayne, we may not have much, but we have everything we need to become everything we're meant to be. At the time, I didn't understand the profound wisdom in those words. But now, after decades of studying, teaching, and most importantly, living these principles of emotional abundance, I understand what she meant. Everything we need for complete abundance is already within us, waiting to be awakened through our emotional alignment. Let me share something powerful with you. In 2012, just a few years ago, I had a profound experience during meditation. I suddenly understood that everything we've been discussing today, all these principles, all these practices, they all come down to one fundamental truth. Abundance is not something you achieve, it's something you remember. Think about that for a moment. Just as a fish doesn't need to learn how to swim, it only needs to stop believing it can't. You don't need to learn abundance. You need to unlearn scarcity. Let me show you how to bring everything we've explored today into a lasting transformation. I call this the integration process, and it's something I've refined over decades of working with people from all walks of life. Morning abundance attunement before you even get out of bed each morning. Place your hand on your heart and say these words, I am abundance, expressing itself as your name. Feel the truth of this statement in every cell of your. The abundance action protocol throughout your day, before every significant decision or action, pause and ask yourself, is this action aligned with abundance or scarcity? Notice I'm not asking if the action will bring abundance. I'm asking if it comes from abundance. I remember applying this principle back in 1990 when I was offered a major publishing deal. On paper, it looked generous, but when I checked in with my abundance consciousness, something felt off. The decision was coming from a place of scarcity, a fear of missing out. I declined the offer, and within a month, an opportunity that was truly aligned with abundance presented itself. The financial terms were actually less favorable, but the impact potential was infinitely greater. The evening abundance inventory each night, review your day through the lens of abundance. Ask yourself, where did I express abundance today? Where did I contract into scarcity? What opportunities for abundance did I miss? How can I expand even more tomorrow? But here's where it all comes together. What I call the abundance integration matrix. This is how you weave everything we've discussed today into the very fabric of your being. Imagine your consciousness as a garden. Your emotions are the soil. Your thoughts are the seeds. Your actions are the water and sunlight. But here's the key, and this is what most people miss. The gardener is your choice. In every moment, you're choosing what to plant, what to nurture, what to harvest. Let me share a powerful technique I call the abundance spiral. It works like this. First, identify an area of your life where you feel scarcity. Don't judge it. Just observe it with compassion. Ask yourself, what emotion am I refusing to feel about this situation? This is crucial because unfelt emotions become abundance blocks. Right there. Allow yourself to fully feel whatever arises, knowing that feeling it is the first step to force. Once you've fully felt it, ask yourself, who would I be without this emotional pattern? This spiral creates an upward momentum that naturally transforms scarcity consciousness into abundance consciousness. And this is essential, you must commit to this practice not just when it's easy, but especially when it's challenging. I remember working with a single mother in Philadelphia in 2005. She was struggling to make ends meet, raising 3 children on her own. When I shared these principles with her, she said something profound. Wayne, I can't afford to indulge in scarcity thinking. My children need me, the abundance itself. Do you understand what she understood? Abundance isn't a luxury. It's a responsibility, not just to yourself, but to everyone your life touches. Every emotion you feel about abundance is either expanding your capacity to receive or reinforcing your limitations. There is no neutral ground. Right now, in this moment, I want you to make a decision. Not a resolution, not a promise, but a decision. A decision to stop waiting for abundance and start being abundance. Because here's what I know with absolute certainty. The universe is not withholding abundance from you. It's waiting for you to stop withholding yourself from abundance. As we conclude our time together, I want to leave you with what I consider the master key to emotional abundance. It's something I discovered after years of searching, teaching, and living these principles. The secret is not in trying to feel abundant despite your circumstances. The secret is in recognizing that you are abundance itself, expressing itself through your circumstances. Every challenge you face is not a test of your worthiness to receive abundance. It's an opportunity to demonstrate your unwavering knowledge that you are abundance itself. Every setback is not a sign that abundance is leaving you. It's an invitation to express abundance in a new. Every fear about scarcity is not a warning to contract. It's a call to expand even more. My dear friends, you didn't come here today by accident. You came because something in you remembers the truth of who you are. Something in you knows that you are not separate from abundance. You are abundance expressing itself in human. So I leave you with this question. The same question that transformed my life. and the lives of countless others I've had the privilege to work with. What would you do today if you absolutely knew that abundance was not something to achieve, but something to express? Because here's the ultimate truth. The moment you stop trying to become abundant and start being abundance itself, everything changes. Remember that hummingbird we talked about at the beginning. It's still out there, still finding sweetness, still spreading life. Not because it tries to be abundant, but because it can't help being what it naturally is. You're no different. You're abundance itself, expressing itself as you. And from this day forward, may you never forget the truth of who you really are. Go forth and be who you truly are. Abundance itself, expressing itself in every breath, every choice, every moment. Thank you. And may abundance flow through you to bless the world.